All right, let's do this. I'm going to get right back into what we started a couple weeks ago. Thank you, Jeremy, for last week. I appreciate that. He worked so hard, I think it made him sick this week, so we got to think about Jeremy. But we're back into Habakkuk, and we're talking about a faith that will sustain you. The truth is, faith at times in your life comes easy. It just comes more simply. And the point I would like to make is that simple faith, though important in the beginning, is not enough to get you through the harder times of life. Like, life will hit you. It'll knock you down. In fact, while you're there, it'll keep hitting you. And if you don't have a strong faith in those very difficult times, you're just going to find it very difficult to go on. And so that's what I want to do. I think this very short series just for this month is important for all of us, no matter where we are in our walk with God, because every Christian needs to know how. How do we build a stronger faith so that when hard times come, we'll be sustained by our trust and our faith in God? So no book, of course, fits that like the book of Habakkuk. I know everybody was thinking that going in. And of course, the goal of this is just to realize, faith is not one of those things you get once and then you sit on it for the rest of your life. Your faith, much like many things in life, needs to be exercised. In fact, exercise is a nice way of saying it. It needs to be tried. It needs to be tested. And the one thing I know about my faith being tried, tested, and exercised is I never asked for any of it. God will do that all on his own. But when he does, will you be sustained by holding on to God no matter what? And so this is what we're looking at throughout this book. And I would tell you, one of the ideas that's come out of it, and it's short, you can read through it really quickly, is that Habakkuk has no problem asking God tough questions. And there's something to that. There's something in that concept that we should learn from. I know for us, it seems wrong at some level. Can we ask God why? Should we be calling on God saying how long? Well, it's what Habakkuk did, and there's some growth for our faith in it, and that's what I want to look at. You see, he opened this letter with this confusion over why. Why, God, are you doing nothing? When this world is so wicked, when I know you're opposed to what this world stands for, why do you stand by and do nothing? And so in that confusion, he asks God this question, and God, of course, responds. You see, Habakkuk says, what are you doing? And this confused faith seems to be this kind of building point in going to God looking for answers. And I'll tell you, there's value in some tough questions in life. And I read an article this week, and of course, it's going to feel like I'm going completely into a different topic now, but I thought it was really fitting for this concept of asking the right questions. There's a man, actually, he's an author, and I will point out immediately, I've never read one of his books. They appear to be somewhat more romantic, I don't know. But he's a novelist, and he confessed that in his years of marriage, they always struggled, he and his wife, just always struggled. Married at the age of 21, both of them had a very unreal idea about what love was. And even after many children came, they just kind of struggled to get along. They competed, it seemed like, had power struggles over the silliest of things. And he said one day, years into this marriage, just feeling like they were completely disconnected, he had this epiphany and just broke down into tears. He said, I can't change her, but I can change. And the question he started to ask, he says, changed their entire life together. See, the next day he came out to where she was in the kitchen, and he said, what can I do to make your day better? Well, she of course, was not feeling connected to him, thought this was perhaps some kind of a trap. She said, you could clean the kitchen. And so he did. And the next day, he said, what can I do to make your day better? And she said, still testing him, well, you could get the garage cleaned out. He knew his day was crammed, it'd be hard to do, but he got it done. And he kept asking the questions for 2 weeks straight every morning. By the end of that time, she broke down. She said, I ought to be asking you that question. Could we maybe just spend some time together? And the point I'm trying to make spiritually is this. When we have hard questions because life has hit us hard, and we refuse to take that to the one we say is everything to us, it builds up walls between us and God. And if you're not careful in never taking the hard questions to God, you'll start to think he doesn't care. He doesn't feel what I'm feeling. He's unaware or detached. But you see, when like Habakkuk, we ask God, why? Look, I'm confused. I don't understand how all this fits. Or we ask God, how long? Of course, you couldn't be more like a child than asking how long. And God loves his children to come ask him these questions because regardless of the answer, what we're saying when we ask God the hard questions is, God, I count on you for direction in my life. What we're admitting is that we would really have a better day if we could have a conversation with God. See, today I want to focus on one of those tough questions that helps build a strong faith, because the reality is every day in this world, life is sending us this great big alert. Something is wrong. And that's what I wanted to accomplish, by the way, in these little notes that we left up here the last couple of weeks. I asked, could we write down some of our losses over the past 15 months? And so those Post-it notes were up here, and some of us took the time to kind of write those things down that we had lost. We were writing them down. We were kind of bringing them to the Lord. Now, I didn't just ask that of this group. I've been asking this question throughout the last 50 months to everybody I know all over. And something's come out of all of that, some commonality that, I don't know if it surprised me, but it just kind of, the data made sense in the end. The first is that in the past 15 months, there have been some real hard losses that people have faced. And the second, as I kind of put all of it together, was that there were some clear categories of losses. And I want to just kind of go over this with you as we wrote these things down. The first I would put kind of under the category of relational losses. You know, even just within this little group, many of us faced the loss, the death of loved ones this past 15 months. Fathers, mothers, sisters, brothers, aunts, uncles. And while loss is always hard, it was complicated by the fact that many of you endured Zoom funerals, something I hope we'll never have to deal with ever again. Just the distance was accentuated, not being there with your loved ones, the pain of that. Many suffered throughout these past 15 months, marriage failure, like absolute shutdown, whether added pressure from two people kind of not having that right question together, or past frustrations finally coming up to the surface. Families were split, destroyed, and suffered catastrophic failure. And I heard many note that they lost friendships during these past 15 months. Not just that they were distant from one another, but they actually lost the ability to be friends with people because the conversations became too difficult. The challenges of life and the questions of life were too much. They were insurmountable obstacles as friends to overcome. And others experienced the loss of health, which they noted affected every one of their relationships one way or another. That's what I would put under relational losses. But there's a second category here. And this one's just as strong. I mean, loss is loss, right? And so there was connection losses. This is something we kind of knew going in. It's not forever, but it's painful now. Like I'm feeling this right now. And so it's this disconnection from vital relationships. And for many, it was noted down that loss of in-person, face-to-face fellowship was just so painful and difficult. Kids wrote down, lost a season of soccer or baseball. Many of you wrote down going to the movies. So I wouldn't consider that the most social thing to do, but I get it, right? We do that together. We're there together. We experience that together. 4-H and the county fair was gone. Others regretted and missed the singing together that we do as a church, or going out to eat together. It's amazing that the connection we make over all these things, and perhaps the most clear indicator of lost personal connection was the hugging, the actual contact with one another. And then the last category I'd put up here would be the losses of our soul, or in our soul. You know, I've talked to so many people in the past year and a half who've said, I just feel like I've lost my joy. I've lost my peace. In fact, maybe underreported is that through all of that, we've perhaps lost a lot of our patience. The loss of confidence was written down. The loss of drive or understanding or ease in public. Even the loss of personality was something someone noted. And so in all these things, we experienced all these losses. And I don't, because I did take in all the data, I'm not going to make a fourth category, but somebody wrote down the loss of toilet paper. And I'm recognizing your loss. But I want to ask you why. Like to some of you, I'm not writing anything down there, but many of you wrote it down. It was neat to put those things together in my office this week. What was that all about? I mean, No doubt we gained things during these last 15 months. So why this negative question? Why ask God, why these losses? What's this all about? Well, I think this is the point. The most important thing we did in this little experiment was not what we did, it was where we did it. We did it together. We did it in front of God. We did it here. We were calling out to God, like, these are things we've missed. These are things that we have lost. And it would have been easy to run and think, I'll deal with this on my own. But instead, we leaned in and we held on to God and we said, this is what this has been like. And again, this minor prophet has major lessons to share with us about building a sustaining faith in God. Remember, unlike the rest of the prophets, Habakkuk does not really talk about or complain about the people. They are wicked. His big complaint is God. God, why aren't you stepping in? And when God finally steps in, why are you doing it that way? And you might think complaining like that would have you eliminated from God's holy book, but God leaves it in there. Why? Because God knows there will be times when we can't figure out why God is letting things get as bad as they are. Why won't you step in? What is he waiting for? These questions lead to what I think is the most important question of all, and it's not a question for God anymore, it's a question for us. Will I, no matter what, stand on this rock, lean into God, cling to who I know him to be, no matter what the circumstances of my life and my struggles are? You see, this book starts with a confusion of Habakkuk over who he knows God is, and a world that just doesn't line up to that. And he wonders why. How could you let it go this way? How come you're not doing something about it? And God's answer was, I'm not ignoring it. In fact, I'm about to do something. He says to Habakkuk, it's so terrible you're not going to understand it when I say it. Like, it's bad. I'm bringing in the Babylonians, and they're going to destroy this place and judge them because of their sins. Now, that particular response, God saying, I am paying attention, isn't necessarily soothing to Habakkuk. And so his next question is, well, why would you do that? They're worse than we are. And all of these questions kind of underlie this struggle. We wonder sometimes in life, why is God letting evil win? How is a holy and reigning God sitting over a throne while such a loathsome kingdom persists? Have you asked that? God, why are things the way they are if you're who you are? You know, simple faith just has no answers for that. It crumbles under that kind of pressure. In fact, I think a lot of churches kind of cause people to fall into faith failures because they teach this very simple message, right? You serve God and everything's good. It's simple, it's good, it's great, and sometimes life is. But it isn't always. And most churches, when people really start to wrestle with these questions of faith, give this great answer: just have more faith. And it not only doesn't help, it's harmful. And so what I want to look at here in this book is how. How do we do it? How do we build this faith that will hold on when we need it most? Well, I will say this. I've come to firmly believe that faith that is built in the absence of struggle is not strong enough to sustain us. Basically, what I'm saying is a faith that says, God is good because my life is good. That's going to fail you because someday your life won't be good, but God's still good. What do you do with that? You've got to build a stronger faith. Again, we don't just believe God and follow God because things are great. We know who he is. And so this is our motto as we go through these three studies. We need to develop a tough faith that will support us when the rock allows us to go through tough times. You see, strong faith presses in even harder towards God when the heat gets turned up in life. And it keeps leaning into God, even when God gives us tough answers we don't necessarily want to hear. We need a God whose thoughts are higher than our thoughts, whose ways are higher than our ways. We need a God that we can't fully understand. If we knew everything, what would we even need faith for? But here we need a God above us. And so confused faith is made stronger by asking God, why? And delayed faith is strengthened by asking God, how long? And that's exactly what Habakkuk does in this book. How long, O Lord, must I call for help, but you do not listen, or cry out to you, violence, but you do not save? I'm going to say this to start. Asking how long is not wrestling with the existence of God. If you were, you wouldn't ask him that. Asking God how long is all about the timing of God. You see, without thinking about it, I think sometimes our faith, a simple faith, can turn into making God sort of a genie in a bottle. And you know what that looks like. We don't see it happening. We don't plan on doing this. But over time, we start to view our lives as, well, I've basically taken these little ingredients out of my life, and I've added these ingredients into my life. And so now I just expect God's got it all covered and taken care of. But you see, that kind of simple view of God and simple faith is ready to hit a hard road when the day comes when you rub as hard as you can on that lamp and God doesn't give you what you asked for. You're setting yourself up for a major fall. And we've all been there. How long, God, until we can see? How long, Father, will my marriage be like this? How long, Jesus, will this sickness last? How long must I be depressed? How long will my child continue down this destructive path? How long until this church sees revival? How long must we watch the moral decay of this society? How long, Lord, until you show up like we know you are? And the truth is, this is the bedrock of the timing issue. We believe that God is fully capable, but we wonder why he's content to do nothing. This question is something God's people have always wrestled with. It's all over Scripture, Psalm 6:3. My soul is in anguish. How long, O Lord? How long? Turn, O Lord, and deliver me. Save me because of your unfailing love. You see, delayed faith is tough because you believe in God. And you believe what he has planned for you. But it's not happening. This kind of faith is a common thread throughout the lives of God's people who are strong in the faith. And you think about that. Those Christians who have most imprinted on you what tough faith looks like are not the Christians who got through life in ease. No trial, no struggle. No. They're the ones that had the most struggle and trial thrown their way. And no matter what, held on to God and wouldn't let go. You saw that there. The question, how long? It's not irreverent. In fact, it's even a part of inspired worship music. Psalm 13, how long, O Lord, will you forget me forever? How long will you hide your face from me? How long must I wrestle with my thoughts and every day have sorrow in my heart? How long will the enemy triumph over me? You see, our faith is tested because we struggle with how things are and how they ought to be. And waiting for the result, I believe, waiting on the Lord for the result is where a tough faith comes from. I love the thought in Revelation chapter 6 where the fifth seal is broken and underneath the altar are these souls of martyred Christians, right? They were killed not because they were bad people, but because they held to Jesus Christ and they wouldn't let go. Even to death, they were faithful. And they cry out from that spot in verse 10. How long, sovereign Lord, holy and true, until you judge the inhabitants of the earth and avenge our blood? Then each of them was given a white robe and they were told to wait a little longer. Are you seeing it? I mean, even after death, their faith needed a little toughening. And it comes in the answer, just wait. Strong faith must learn to leave the timing up to God. And Habakkuk, of course, asked these tough questions. But what I love about this little book is Habakkuk not only asks God tough questions, he then says with confidence, I'm going to go wait for an answer. I'm going to go up to the ramparts. I'm going to wait for God to give an answer. And that's exactly what he did. In Habakkuk 2, verses 2 through 3, God gives his answer. The Lord replied, write down the revelation and make it plain on tablets so that a herald may run with it. For the revelation awaits an appointed time. It speaks of an end and will not prove false. Though it linger, wait for it. It will certainly come and will not delay. This addresses perhaps the greatest faith struggle free, independent, and organized people have. God has an appointed time, and it may not match your day planner. God is free to do what he wills to do, and it may not line up with the freedoms you hold to. Not yet. You see, in this short series we did this winter of waiting. We brought up that poem from Lewis Smedes that I just love. Waiting is the hardest part of hope. And I thought about that all as I was writing this week. I thought, it should be just twisted a little bit. Waiting is the hard reality of faith. Wait for it. Though it linger, wait for it. Has God ever asked you that? It's not coming yet, but will you just hang in there? Just hold on. Just wait for it. You see, this is how we exercise our faith. We have to learn that our walk with God so often is defined by waiting on the Lord, being still and knowing He is Lord, or just trusting in the Lord and not our own understanding. You see, the answer is coming. And if we could learn this, we would be so strengthened in our faith to trust in God because God will never abandon us. That's the second thing I want to tell you about how long faith. It knows it's not abandoned. You see, realize that just because God is silent doesn't mean that He's left us all alone. He's not abandoned us. I was reading an article on Bo Jackson this week that I really liked, and I won't tell you the whole thing now, but one of the things I read that caught my eye was it talked about how he envied everybody on his teams growing up as a kid all the way through the pros. Now, if you don't know, Bo Jackson was an all-pro in 2 major league sports. The NFL had a career that any person going in the NFL would say, I would like to have that kind of career. Same thing in Major League Baseball. And yet, when pressed, he said, no, I envied. I envied every kid on my team, and I envied every adult on my team because my life was different than theirs. See, Bo Jackson had a dad that lived across town with a different family. Didn't even give Bo his own last name. It hurt him, and it scarred him. He said, the only time I saw that man was every couple of months he'd put $20 on the table and leave. He said, in growing up, beside all the acclaim, beside all the wins, beside being recruited to the top schools and getting paid the top salaries, what I really missed is that my dad never saw me play once. And what I'm saying is, sometimes you're going to feel like the one you need the most is not there, right when you need Him the most. And this is where how long faith can be strengthened. You see, Habakkuk knew, just because I don't see God's presence here doesn't mean God's not present here. And this is a trap we fall into. See, the truth is, when we feel most like God's doing nothing, it's only telling us that we know nothing about what God is doing. He's there. He's present. And that is where Habakkuk's courage comes from. I know you got to be doing something, but how long? How long until you really get to it? It's okay to call this out to God. I don't get it. I don't see it. I really don't understand it. But what I love about Habakkuk, I'm going to expect the best of you, God, because I know it's you. And though I ask how long, I'll keep waiting. That's why I love the song where it says, wait, and a pause. Wait, and a pause. Yes, wait on. That's where our strength and our courage comes from. Not knowing everything God's going to do, just knowing He's going to get done everything He wants to get done. And I trust God to do that. God is working whether I see it or not, and I will believe the best about God, even when I fail to see it. See, I believe that God is worth the wait, and most often, the only way we see the work that God's been doing in our life comes much later, doesn't it? In those panic moments of why and how long, we don't see Him work. But in the end, looking backward, you can see God was doing something I never would have done in myself. He was accomplishing something bigger than what I wanted done. You see, the reward for those who wait is that we start to see that the win was never in jeopardy. There's another thing about delayed faith. How long faith is clear about God getting the win. You know, that strong faith is never detoured by how long the struggle is. And those Christians in my life who have endured so much, I watch them, and they don't know when this illness will end. They don't know when this suffering will go away. But one thing they know, God's got it. He's going to win. It may not be the win I asked for, but God's got this. Strong faith is able to wait for God to reveal the road because it realizes that while our vision is limited, God's vision is perfect. God knows exactly what's going on all the time. And that's this Psalm 139 idea. I can't go anywhere from the presence of God. Now, the reverse feeling of that is, I feel like I can't go anywhere to find the presence of God, but God's not changed. He's everywhere, over everything, sees it, knows it, and cares about it. You see, faith that asks God how long can endure a long time, because the one thing it sees with absolute clarity is that God will triumph over evil with absolute certainty. See, Habakkuk could not be certain when the answer would come, but he knew without a doubt what the outcome would be. The rock will save. God will destroy evil. God will restore order. God will bring about the restoration of all things. And knowing that for certain, even when you don't see it happening, makes waiting just a little easier. And so I want you to look at Habakkuk Chapter 2. There's this really interesting song that's written in there, and it's an odd place to throw a song in. It's not just an interesting song, it's an interesting type of song. It's like Isaiah 14. It's a genre called the Taunt Song. I don't think we sing enough of them. The Taunt Song incorporates this reversal of fortune. So God tells Habakkuk, I'm listening and you're going to be destroyed. And he says, what are you doing? But then he turns his praises back to God and says, okay, that's fine, because I know the wicked people that judge us, you'll judge them too. And there's some comfort in that. You see, the taunt song is about the strong king becoming weak, or the spoiler getting spoiled. What it is like the proud being knocked down to earth. It expresses someone's final rejection and judgment with no hope for repentance. And this is the song that Habakkuk starts to write. Now, it's a song rejoicing at the future death of Babylon. Seems like a weird thing to sing when Babylon's coming to destroy you. But he knew, it gave him comfort. God's not going to let this be the end. He'll destroy those wicked Babylonians. Their harshness, their wickedness will be judged. He knew this, even though he would never see it. It gave him hope. You see, God will not tolerate evil forever. It will be judged, and God will triumph. And so while we're confused and the answer seems delayed, we wait. We anticipate that God will set everything right in his time. And this is where Habakkuk has to get to. And so he writes later in chapter 3, I hear these things and my body trembles. My lips tremble when I hear the sound. My bones feel weak and my legs shake. Now I want to just point out, they will be judged and destroyed by Babylon. And no prayer is going to turn that around. There's no last minute kind of God's going to step in and it won't happen. But here's his hope. But I will wait patiently for the day of disaster that will come to the people who attack us. Like, my only hope is that God's going to get this all right in the end. You know, one of the major themes of Scripture goes along this line. God is constantly calling his people. Don't be distracted by what's in front of you. Don't worry about the cares of today. There's enough cares today to deal with himself. You, as children of God, keep your eye on the end game. I have a home for you, a place prepared. You can come be with. You live a life today that says you want to be with me forever. But human nature works against that, doesn't it? This is the way it typically goes. When the fire heats up in this life, we tend to make compromises. Anything to release the pressure, anything to feel more at ease. We give up this and we give up that, and in the end, we give up God. We betray one another just to stop the fire, just to start cooling down. But God wants us to live today with an eye on the future he's promised. He will judge all this evil. So don't be a part of it. Yeah, I might still be in this fire for a while, but I'm going to join that side because God will win. This reminds me a lot again of the last book of Revelation, and I know I'm supposed to be teaching this in the fourth quarter, and so I don't want to spoil it all for you here, but largely the whole book is about God is the victor. It looks like evil's winning. It looks like Satan's got the upper hand, but God wins. In fact, a preacher that I really, really love to listen to sums up Revelation in 3 simple points. The first is God is going to win. The second is you must choose which side you're on. And the third is don't be stupid. I mean, it's really simple when you think about it. Pick the winning side. Simple faith will sell out in the face of pressure. But strong faith gets stronger because it refuses to let go of the rock. Now, this positive view of our future victory, by the way, doesn't mean that all the pressure in life will disappear. I absolutely love Hebrews chapter 11. I love it. I just think we've kind of misconstrued it over time. It's become the hall of fame of the faithful. And when we read through the Hall of Fame, we tend to go right to those great victories, right? Like they drove away foreign nations and they conquered lands and they were victorious in ways that only God could provide victory. But the truth is, from verse 35 on, there's a whole different kind of people there that are shown as faithful. And for many of you dealing with hard times, here's where you ought to put your eye. Verse 35 says, others were tortured, refused to be released. Some faced jeers and flogging, while still others were chained and put in prison. They were stoned, they were sawn in two, they were put to death by the sword. They went about in sheepskins and goatskins, destitute, persecuted and mistreated. The world was not worthy of them. They wandered in deserts and mountains and in caves and in holes in the ground. It sounds like God didn't have any favor for them. But listen, verse 39, these were all commended for their faith. Yet none of them received what had been promised. God had planned something better for us so that only together with us would they be made perfect. And strong faith can endure even when hardships and trials persist because we refuse to let go of the hope the rock has given us. Victory's coming. I need you to hear this right now. No matter what you think God's promised you, no matter what you may believe God owes you, no one in this room living in this sin-infested world is going to receive everything God has in store for you in this life. It's not the way this works. God will restore all things. God will make all things new. Death will not be victorious. Tears will be wiped away, and there will be no more night there. But here, we wait, holding on to God. And what that does for us in our faith is it helps us find peace. When life says there's no peace to be had, God brings us peace while we wait. I'm going to say it this way. There is nothing in our way that can change who is on the throne. No matter what you've faced and what you've been through, I believe that if we knew that, we wouldn't have to tweet so much. No matter what's happening in this world, God reigns supreme. So listen to where this thought leads Habakkuk. But the Lord is in his holy temple. Let all the earth be silent before him. Now, I know the tendency here. An older set might look at this and say, yeah, our younger people do need to be more quiet. This is a passage about being quiet. I want you to understand, Habakkuk is not telling God's people to be quiet. He is telling the judged world to hush their arrogance because the throne belongs to God. He is not telling us to be silent. He is leading us to confidence. And you know this. If God being in his holy temple meant that stone structure in Jerusalem, then God was in trouble because Babylon was coming. And they're about to tear that thing apart. No, that's not what he's talking about. This is more like Psalm 11. The Lord is in his holy temple. The Lord is in his heavenly throne. He observes the sons of men. His eyes examine them. What he is saying is, let the Babylonians do their worst, and they would. But even when they tear this thing apart stone by stone, it doesn't change who God is. He is sovereign and he reigns. God is in his temple, our hearts. God is on his throne. No matter what evil throws at us, God is supreme. And so here's the thought. A strong faith moves past seeing God as a genie who grants wishes to those who behave themselves and starts to view him as he is, sovereign ruler of the universe. And strong faith will never lose sight of that. God is good. God is great. God is in charge. And I'll tell you this, free, independent people, God does not need our advice about how to run this universe. So, when life heats up, this kind of faith is going to bring you peace in the middle of any storm because it rests on the sovereignty of God. I love Matthew 8's depiction of Jesus sleeping on the boat. First of all, you might note throughout all the Gospels, a resting Jesus is something you rarely see. When others slept, he was in prayer. But here's one moment you see this peaceful, resting Jesus. And it's a storm. I want to tell you, I know that the disciples, they probably overreacted many times, but they're fishermen. And if they think the boat's going down, there's probably real trouble here. But in the midst of trouble, in the midst of peril, they cry out, Lord, save us. And Jesus is resting. Why? How long, God, will this storm go on? None of that mattered. Because Jesus knew that God was still in charge. I actually saw a shirt, probably fit more for teenagers. It had Matthew 8:24 on it. Jesus was sleeping. It said, Jesus took naps. Be like Jesus. Maybe that's for little kids. But I want to ask you, can you do that? Can you be like Jesus? When you're in turmoil, when it's your job, when it's your kid, when it's your marriage, are you able to find peace in the midst of all that chaos, knowing God's not abandoned me, he's going to lead me through this? Can you have peace in that storm? If you can, I think the idea is not just that you have peace because you have confidence in a sovereign God, but that peace, and you know this, is something that starts to help those around you because they become connected to what God gives as well. Well, maybe this is the real test of our faith. Yeah, it's not just this intellectual understanding. God's in control, God's in control. I don't know about you, control freaks out there. You can say God is in control out loud as much as you want. It's not going to change until you live like you know God is in control. You got to give that up and let him run that show. And that's what I'm hoping Habakkuk is going to teach all of us. You ask God why, and you ask God how long, but then you wait in peace for God to have his say. He'll deliver as he promised. Maybe not in this life, but someday. And while waiting is the hardest work of hope, and while waiting is the hard reality of faith, the truth is we serve a God, a sovereign God, who is worth waiting for. So we don't have to save ourselves. God sent his son to die in our stead, to save our souls. If you're here today and you're ready to put on Christ in baptism, do just that. God sent out that lifeline through his own son, Jesus Christ. You can be buried with him, having your sins washed away, and start to walk a new life for God. If you're here and you need our prayers, again, there are times when we don't even know what words to say, but you can tap a brother and a sister on the shoulder and say, I got to talk to God. They will pray with you right now. Ask God why, how long, and find peace that's waiting there.